You're listening to a CNA podcast.
This is the most watched video on Visit Japan's official YouTube page. It shows cherry blossoms, bamboo gardens, snow-covered peaks. But to be honest, it looks like any other tourism promo out there. But what makes this 30-second clip stand out is that it has 67 million views. The global infatuation with Japan is not new, but it has been growing since the end of the pandemic. And this year, the countdown is on for this.
In 2025, Expo 2025 Osaka, Kansai, Japan will finally arrive.
The World Expo opens its doors in mid-April. Organizers hope the event will draw more than 28 million visitors. But here's the thing. Japan is a country known for its contradictions, and that includes its tourism. It wants to welcome foreigners, but it's also struggling with overcrowding. I'm Teresa Tang. CNA's Japan correspondent Michiyo Ishida joins me today. Hi, Mitch.
Hi.
I've been to Japan once. I know, only once. What I remember, the food was good, locals were polite, it was fun. I liked it. But some people don't like Japan. They love Japan. They go back over and over again, especially in the last few years, given the yen is so weak. As a local, do you understand the infatuation people have with your country? What makes it so captivating?
Well, Teresa, I do travel throughout Japan as a TV correspondent. Honestly, before I became a correspondent a few decades ago, I didn't find Japan so captivating. I basically thought Japanese food tasted too salty, soy saucy, lots of miso. But because, I've been traveling for this job, I realized that the experience is different in every prefecture throughout Japan. There are 47 prefectures. The culinary experience, including the local catch, the fish, the kind of land, the climate differentiates the kind of fruits, vegetables that are grown, and the landscape varies. Japan has its 4 seasons, cherry blossoms, the autumn leaves, and as Japan is a volcanic archipelago, there are hot springs in most areas. There are deep forests, beautiful rivers, mountains, and the most iconic is Mount Fuji. There are historic structures, one of the most famous are in the old capital Kyoto with the UNESCO World Heritage Temples and Shrines. And in 2024, a record 36.87 million visited Japan. That's 15.6% more than in 2019.
Wow.
That's the year when inbound tourists recorded the most pre-COVID-19 times. And of course, the yen's depreciation has had a big impact too to help draw inbound tourists last year. But, really up until 25, 30 years ago, inbound tourism was not vital for Japan's economy. Japan had enough domestic travelers with its huge population. But today, with its declining population and a weaker manufacturing industry, except for the automaking industry, tourism has emerged to become one of the most hopeful industries in Japan today.
It sounds like there's something for everyone in Japan. Let's talk about the World Expo. Many governments believe it's one of the big 3 events that can elevate a country's visibility on the world stage. The other 2 being the Olympics and the Football World Cup. Japan has hosted all of those events 6 times for the Expo, and this is actually the second time the so-called World's Fair has been in Osaka. And I know you attended in the past. Can you tell me what that experience was like?
Yes, I did cover the Tokyo Olympic Games, the 2002 World Cup. And as to the World Expo, I covered the 2005 Aichi Expo. My impression of that time, it was just so crowded. I was there 3 to 4 times, but I never saw the most talked about attraction at that time. The display of the real mammoth excavated from Siberia.
You missed it.
Yes, in Siberia, but I missed it. The queue was just too long. I was not there to actually cover the mammoth, but to cover the Singapore Pavilion and some high-tech displays. I do remember seeing robotic vehicles. I think I've tried some of them. The most memorable coverage was a joint concert by Japan's pop queen, Yumi Matsutoya, and Singapore's singer Dick Lee, celebrating SG40 at that time. And actually, the 2005 Aichi Expo played a vital role to promote the three R's, to reduce, reuse, and recycle. That was a memorable time back then. Visitors are reported to have become more active with energy saving due to their visit to reduce, reuse, and recycle. So the expo had impact on people's attitude, and it's hoped the coming expo will have an impact too.
And that was 2 decades ago. And now, 20 years later, you've been given a media preview of the 2025 edition. What do you think people are going to be the most excited about? Is there a centerpiece to all of this? Is there a mammoth this year?
Well, let me give you a big picture of the 2025 Osaka Expo. The main theme is designing future society for our lives. Now, when you are there, you notice a big wooden structure surrounding the expo site called Grand Ring. That's the centerpiece. And it's regarded the world's biggest wooden structure with a circumference of 2 kilometers. It's built using Japan's traditional wood building technology, similar to that used to build Kiyomizu Temple in Kyoto, which is a World Heritage Site. Now, if you walk under it, it can help shield you from the rain and from the sweltering summer heat in Osaka. You can walk on top of the ring, and from there, not only can you catch a bird's eye view of the expo site, you can see the city of Osaka and all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Now, media here highlight the planned display of an object from Mars.
Wow.
It's believed to be part of a meteorite. And it was discovered in Antarctica by Japanese who were there on their expedition. And those who remember the 1970 Osaka Expo might recall seeing the rock of the moon, so the concept is kind of similar. We are not still informed enough to be excited about the whole expo, but we do know that there'll be Japan's anime singer Ado, who will be part of the opening concert. We hear Osaka's local orchestra will perform often. A flying car could be operated during the time. We hear of an AI support for those with visually impairment, including the exhibition of the most advanced medical and healthcare products. There will be, other than the anime singer, actual anime, manga, Japan's dialects and dying language, including the Ainu language, and a wide variety of experiences and displays are expected. And organizers hope visitors to the 2025 Osaka Expo will go home thinking about how to save lives, empower lives, and connect lives. And those are the sub-themes of the expo.
Yeah, interesting. You brought up Ainu. I remember we did a podcast on that, right? One of
Yes.
Japan's dying languages. Mitch, as with any massive event, there are going to be challenges, no exception here. One thing people are hung up on is the ticket booking system. What's the big deal?
Well, 14 million tickets went on sale from the end of November, but just a little more than half had been purchased as of the end of January. Now, those tickets were purchased mainly by companies, according to reports. The problem seems to be the fact that tickets are not open-ended. You have to book a specific date and time. Mm-hmm. And actually, I posed this ticket issue to the Secretary General of the international body of the World Exposition, Mr. Dimitri Kirkantis. So let's hear from him.
It's true that people have to buy one and then book a reservation slot, and that also could mean that people are delaying their purchase until they're ready to book that actual slot. Whereas in previous expos, you bought a ticket, you went any day that you wanted.
And adding to that, I do hear that Osaka governor is demanding that the organizers simplify the ticketing system. Otherwise, it will also be a big problem to the government of Osaka, who will have to perhaps handle the deficit if ticket sales are bad.
I was also reading a news report from Japan that described the Osaka World Expo as, quote, an event that few even want. That sounds pretty bad. What do you think? What are locals telling you?
Well, actually, before I went to Osaka to cover the Osaka Expo preview, when I told my friends in Tokyo about it, they were like, is it actually happening? So that's the kind of reaction you get in Tokyo, you know? There's not much interest. They don't hear much about it. Then I thought, okay, if I actually go to Osaka, the reactions, you know, by the people there might be a little bit different, and we might be able to start a good conversation on the excitement building up towards the Osaka Expo. So I went there, asked around. Okay, let's hear a comment from an okonomiyaki restaurant owner, Tomoharu Fukuda, to hear what he says.
I do not yet feel any excitement or have any expectations. I've never met anyone who said they wish to attend or has purchased a ticket.
Well, and I've been speaking to other local residents, and out of all the residents I spoke to, just one taxi driver told me that he's already bought tickets and is encouraging friends to purchase tickets to support Osaka. The cost to host the expo is rising. Its initial budget was 125 billion yen. It's now expected to double. And the taxi driver said that he was afraid that, you know, Osaka will have to carry the burden of the deficit if people don't support. But if you actually look back at past expos in Japan, excitement took time to build up. This was the case in Osaka 1970, also IT 2005. The fundamental problem currently is the limited information on what the visitors can expect. But once the expo kicks off, the local and international media are likely to cover extensively according to organizers, and they think that ticket sales will start to pick up. Now, the aim is to attract 28 million visitors during half a year. That seems to be modest figure when you compare it to the 1970 Osaka, which in the end attracted more than 64 million. And, you know, that was a record breaker. And that number was not broken until 2010 Shanghai Expo.
Here's the funny thing, though. Japan, on the one hand, they want to rev up tourism. They want to get those visitor numbers up for the World Expo. But on the other hand, over-tourism has also become a problem, particularly in the country's three most visited cities. We're talking Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka, ironically, the venue of the World Expo. How bad is this over-tourism in the country, Michiyo?
Okay, well, I live in Tokyo, and it's pretty congested in the main part of Tokyo, at the main cities. But I've seen horrible footage of congestions in Kyoto going viral on social media. So congested, tourists can't even move off railway tracks, disrupting public transportation. In the past, we've been hearing of Geiko and Maiko, which the international community call geisha. They were being chased by tourists who desire photos with them. But, you know, Geiko and Maiko, it's their profession. They're not there for tourists, but they work as Geiko and Maiko at restaurants and offer services to their customers. And we do hear there are signs put out calling for a ban of paparazzi in the area. There's some local authorities deciding to put a huge shield to cover the peak of Mount Fuji. Mount Fuji has been attracting a lot of tourists the past few years. It's been overcrowding this convenience store known for its majestic view of Mount Fuji. So that cover up of Mount Fuji has been happening. But then I've been hearing that visitors have been piercing holes on that cover so that they can't get a shot of Mount Fuji. So, well, that's still going on. And in Kamakura, which is the old capital of Japan near Tokyo, there's a site with a magnificent view of the sea and the railway, which was a model for a famous animation. I think it was Slum Dunk. Tourists reported to be blocking the roads there, the traffic, and leaving litter. But then, you know, I'm talking about all these negative impact of over-tourism. There's an area in Osaka, which I saw has revived due to the inbound tourism. So it's not all bad, you know, with a lot of tourists coming to Japan.
You don't necessarily want to discourage foreigners from visiting, but you do want to safeguard the country's integrity and its popularity as well. And one way is to make it more expensive to travel to Japan. Can you tell us how that's working?
Tokyo was actually the pioneer of slapping hotel tax since 2002. It's a very small 100 yen for accommodation that costs 10,000 to 15,000 yen a night, which is about maybe 70 to 80 US cents, and 200 yen for above 15,000. Now, other Japanese cities and towns have decided to follow suit. Kyoto, which is the extremely popular old capital, has decided to set even higher hotel tax from March 2026. It's 10,000 yen, maybe about 80 US dollars for accommodation fee of more than 100,000 yen. This is regardless of whether the person is from Japan or a Japan resident or from overseas. Now, what Kyoto has done is it wants to prevent visitors from traveling commuter buses. There have been reports residents could not get on commuter buses to go to school, to work because of overtourism. And tourists, carrying their huge luggage on commuter buses. So there are now buses for tourists traveling to tourist sites. As to another site in Himeji, famous for Himeji Castle, World Heritage Site, it wants to raise admission fee from 1,000 yen to maybe double or triple from 2026, targeting non-Himeji residents. Nara's prefectural museums used to waive admission fee for inbound tourists in hopes of attracting more from overseas, but they plan now to charge everyone from this April. Now, local authorities will need some time to determine whether these attempts will be effective to bring more funds to the cities and not to discourage people from traveling to these areas.
Yeah, I was reading about tactics, not just monetary, that Japan has been trying out, and this has actually been going on for a decade or more. One strategy is diversion. We're talking about getting tourists to head to maybe less visited destinations, also straight up just banning tourists from certain private alleys or areas where they cause a nuisance. What has been the most effective, do you think?
We have to really wait and see, but this Lunar New Year, there seems to be some bright prospect in diverting tourists, other than to Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto, where the concentration of tourists is so high. Now, according to travel agent KK Day, which is based in Taiwan and Japan, they say that there's a rising number of inbound tourists, in particular from Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Korea, traveling to northeastern Japan or to Yamagata, Miyagi, and even Fukushima, which many were in the past afraid because of the, crippled nuclear plant being decommissioned there. But, tourists seems to be attracted to the mesmerizing snowy scene, playing in the snow, experiencing hot springs. And, that area is not so congested yet, compared to, for instance, Hokkaido or Nagano prefectures known for hosting the Winter Olympic Games in the past. And we've been hearing that All Nippon Airways is offering free domestic flights to travelers from China transiting in Japan to encourage them to travel to the countryside. So, the attempts to divert travelers has started.
Post-pandemic tourism has surged, like we talked about off the top, and Japanese officials say they have a long-term goal of 60 million annual visitors by the year 2030. Before we go, Michiyo, for those listening who may be on their way to your country, maybe for the Osaka World Expo, what can they do to be good tourists?
Well, basically, the Japanese people like to follow the rule. They want visitors to do the same. For instance, I've seen on social media residents hushing a foreign visitor talking on her mobile phone on a commuter train, because you're not supposed to talk on your phone on the commuter train. You have to be, you can chat, but, with your friends, but they think it's a nuisance. And even the train operators tell people on the trains, don't talk on your phones. I've seen neighborhoods putting up signs asking tourists not to drag their luggage on wheels during bedtime. Now, trash is another issue here in Japan. In Tokyo, for instance, if you walk around, there are limited trash bins. So the etiquette is to take waste back with you. If you do take back waste with you, you have to separate them in your neighborhood, whether they're PET bottles, cans, newspapers, magazines, combustibles, or non-combustibles. It's probably a nuisance to foreign visitors, but that's how things work here in Japan. And the Japanese in general don't like food wasted. If you go to a buffet, they expect you to take what you can finish. And, overall, good manners is so important in this country. And having said that, I have witnessed many foreign tourists here who are well-mannered. They are seen queuing politely in front of popular shops and restaurants, enjoying Japan. And it appears that many, of those who have been here before actually like how Japan is orderly, not so, noisy. And so they're back. And that's been the case of my many international friends who visit me here in Tokyo or the rest of Japan. And I hope you come and visit me someday. Not just once, but maybe twice, 3 times, Teresa.
I would love to. It sounds like a beautiful country, one that I have not explored thoroughly enough. Thank you for those great tips as well. And, talking about the Osaka World Expo pavilions, they still need to be built. Tickets still need to be sold. But one thing's for sure, that World Expo is going to be a big story for Japan this year. And I'm really looking forward to your coverage, Michiyo. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Teresa.
And a reminder to our listeners, you can find Michiyo's reports on YouTube and also on CNA.Asia. There are TV episodes of CNA Correspondent every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Singapore, Hong Kong time. I'm Teresa Tang, and the team behind this week's episode is Saya Win, Clara Ong, Crispina Robert, and Craig Dale. A new episode drops next Wednesday. Join us then. Bye for now.